She said, well, how's that possible? Well, let me say it to each of you. What if I told you that with 4 reader devices, I could pretty much determine that you'd been here? Well, the first one would be a reader device at the on-ramp of the freeway that you probably got on to come here. Michelin, the tire manufacturer, is already, right now, embedding these devices between the rubber layers of its tires. Now, it is doing it to comply with some federal mandate that says tires need to be easily identified because of the big Firestone mess where the Firestone tires were defective. Other tire manufacturers have managed to comply with that mandate without putting RFID devices in the tires. So we have some concerns about how legitimate of a reason that is. But the fact remains that Michelin is putting them in there. Now, these can be read going 90 miles an hour from a couple feet away. Now, do you need one of these? Let's say it's a couple-foot read range. Do you need a reader device every 2 feet down the freeway? No. You only need one in the on-ramp and one at the off-ramp. Because once you get on the freeway, you're not going to fool it away until you get off. So let us say that as you got on the freeway to come here this evening, you drove over a strip laid down in the road that read your identifying information from that tire. And then you drove down the freeway. Let's say you came 30 miles. And when you got off, another one went up, got off the freeway now. Now, not only would someone then know where you traveled, but they'd also know how fast you went, and they could even issue you an automatic speeding ticket if you got off the freeway a little faster than you should have. Now, once you've gotten off the freeway, the fact that you're driving down a road is usually not of much interest to anybody until you get somewhere, because you can't do too much in your car. So as you're driving down the road, the next thing you're going to do is pull into the parking lot to come into this building. So you put another little reader device down in the parking lot. Bingo, now we know where he was going. And the last reader device would be the reader device in the doorway of the building as you entered. And that doorway reader device actually doesn't need much of a read range because most doorways are only about this wide. So as you go through a doorway, you only need about 18 inches on either side, maybe 24 inches on either side. And as you walk through that doorway, it scans your entire electronic cloud and everything associated with you. Now, you may remember a couple years back, people were upset because at the Super Bowl in Florida, they had put facial recognition cameras up, and they were taking pictures of people's faces using sophisticated computer technology to match those faces with a database of known criminals. And a lot of people said, well, that's an invasion of my privacy. You shouldn't be taking my picture. I didn't do anything wrong. Again, guilty until proven innocent, that whole sort of, investigate everyone because someone may have committed a crime. That's child's play compared to what we will have if we allow this technology to go forward. Every doorway you walk through could scan your entire electronic cloud, identifying everything from your earrings down to your clothing, down to the contents of your purse, your pocket, your wallet, your briefcase, the amount of cash even in your wallet potentially, depending on how far that read range is. If even one of those devices was paid for with a credit card, they now have an audit trail on you and a pretty good chance of knowing who you are. In fact, not only that, but they probably can get a trail of your associates as well. Did your husband give you that watch? Did he pay for it with his credit card? Now we know who he is. Did you have lunch maybe last week with a coworker and maybe walked off with their pencil? Gee, we have that too. Are you carrying a can of Coke maybe that you bought out of a vending machine at a certain location? Okay, now we know when you were there. So the idea of doorways actually being able to scan us and the things we're carrying is quite chilling. Now let's talk about shoes for a minute. This actually says, are you wearing track shoes? And I apologize that the bottom of that's not visible. We'll play on words there. The shoe that I'm holding here. Let me talk about shoes for a minute. I was at a conference back in June on this technology, sponsored by people who support and want to promote this technology. So 350 business executives from some of the biggest global corporations in the world got together. And they were talking amongst themselves about how wonderful this new chipped world will be when they can know where everything is all the time. And one of the things they demoed was they held up a tennis shoe. And they pulled back the insole of the tennis shoe and revealed a hidden RFID tag underneath it. Now, this is a prototype. To my knowledge, it has not yet been produced or manufactured. But their idea, and see if this sounds as crazy to you as it did to me, their idea was that, won't it be great when we can put these devices in shoes and we can, we won't have to have those sorting parties in the back of the shoe store when they all get jumbled together and we've got to identify the size 7s and the size 8s and we've got to find the match, the left and the right. And it'll eliminate that horrible problem that all of us have had so many times where you buy 2 left shoes or a size 9 with a size 3. I don't know. Hasn't happened to me very often. That was their stated reason for wanting to put these devices in shoes. Now, just common sense would say if you aimed a reader device at a pile of shoes, all you'd get back would be a bunch of numbers. It wouldn't help you match them up any better than anything else. Maybe putting blue labels on size 7s and red labels on size 8s would be a lower tech, cheaper, and more efficient way of doing that. But what it would do, if you put RFID tags in shoes, is it would provide an almost foolproof way of identifying individuals. Now, a lot of people talk about, is this going to wind up in our hands? Is this going to wind up implanted in our bodies? And we'll get to that in just a second. But you don't really have to do that to identify people. Let me ask you this. When was the last time someone else wore the pair of shoes you have on your feet right now? Shoes are the one item that we don't trade. Shoes are the one item that, in fact, other people usually don't buy for us because they can't really even know our size. Shoes have to fit properly. And once they fit properly, just cultural norms and size issues and a bunch of other reasons say we don't share them. And most men only have 2 or 3 pairs of shoes they wear regularly. Most women only have 3 or 4 pairs of shoes as well. So if you could identify those shoes, and if you could put a tracking device in them, you could follow someone pretty easily. Now let me talk read range. Now remember we said up to 20, 30 feet? 20, 30 feet is not helpful. Let me tell you why. I'm standing here and I've got a reader and I go zoom, right? I now know every chip in this room. I get back 1,000 numbers. That's not helpful to me, right? It could be in some certain scenarios, but to really know individually information about what you're carrying, not as helpful. What would be helpful to me, though, would be to be able to put, let's say, a little, let's say I'm a retailer and I want to know who you are. I can put a little mat on the floor embedded with a reader device with a 2-inch read range. You can't read further than about 2 inches away. And as you're stepping on that mat, I'm identifying you right through your shoe. These tiny chips can be embedded right into the rubber sole when this rubber was poured into the mold, this foam, in a way that you would never even know it was there. And in fact, this very pair of shoes that I'm holding, which was purchased at a Kmart store, contained this tag. This tag says, "Attention, our products have theft detection devices embedded, which will be deactivated at the register or the service desk." Now, to my knowledge, when this pair of shoes was purchased, no one actively said really anything about what that device was. I don't know if it was deactivated or not. I don't know what that device is. I don't know where it is. I do know one thing, that this company, Footstar, manufactures its shoes in China, among other places. But one of the things that it said in its website was that it is experimenting with RFID technology. And one of its concerns, I believe, was that people, their factory workers might steal the tags because they're valuable tags. Now, do we know if those have unique identifying numbers? We don't. And that's one of the problems as consumers, is we have very little knowledge about, first of all, where they are, and second of all, what's being done with the information once it's being put in there. But shoes would be the ultimate tracking device, at least until we get to human tracking devices. Okay, let me talk about this oneness concept. Now, at the Chicago Retail System, or the Retail Systems 2003 convention in Chicago, there's a big publication that they hand out. And the publication talks about creating oneness among systems, supply chain, and business. Oneness meaning that all of these businesses would be working together with the same basic standard format of data. They would be sharing this data, and you would get sort of a one unified system in which everything was operating in the same way, meaning that all supermarkets would be collecting data about you in the same way, meaning that all RFID devices would be readable by the same set of readers, or would all be standardized and one. And in fact, at a recent conference where CEOs, chief executive officers from some of the biggest corporations in the world who were not yet sponsors of this technology were invited to Boston to a ritzy hotel to participate in a conference. And one of the things they were given at the conference about this technology to encourage them to get on board with it was this book called Adapt or Die. The subtitle says, "Transforming Your Supply Chain into an Adaptive Business Network," meaning that if you can keep track of all your products all the time, then you will be able to more quickly adapt to changes in the supply chain and understanding what's being bought and sold and when and how and where, and it will make you more responsive. I found this rather threatening. Adapt or die, sort of. All right. Now, the question I am always asked, when will they want to put these in human beings? Is there a desire to put them in human beings? Are we next? Well, the Auto ID Center at MIT, the global consortium with 103 of the biggest sponsors, Philip Morris, Procter & Gamble, Gillette, Sara Lee, they produced this slide which talks about